Welcome, Shannon Rowan, to my show. How are you today?
Great, Guy. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited about this.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. And obviously, I've had one of your colleagues who you co-wrote with, John Hamer, on recently. And so I really do appreciate you reaching out.
Mm.
So, do you want to quickly tell everybody a little bit about you and how you got into writing?
Yeah, I will. I have a background in writing, editorial writing for magazines. When I was a photojournalist, that was kind of my first career, and then I also did editorial writing, and some creative writing. And then I met John Hamer in 2018 or 19, around there. Just online after I was a fan of his work, and I contacted him. And sometimes happens that you make friends, with your fans, and that's what happened with us. And then he recognized I had writing skills, and he was really fascinated by my story about being harmed by EMFs, man-made EMFs, Wi-Fi in particular, in cell phones and cell towers, smart meters. So I was harmed physically by those that made me like hyper reactive, and now I've had to like move several times to get away from exposures so that I don't have to deal with my debilitating symptoms, which are like horrible. And I met lots of people like me, which led me to really researching into the topic and discovering how much we've been lied to, how, industry cover up about the harms that, known this a long time, policy making with government to make it so that we can't complain or do anything about, the
Mm.
exposures, things like that. And then John's work kind of opened up my eyes to some other things. I mean, I always maybe had a little bit of a conspiracy theorist hat on my head, just me questioning things in general, being an inquisitive person, maybe because I worked in journalism too. But he wanted to collaborate on something because he didn't know anything about the EMF topic, and he saw that I did, so he offered like a co-authorship, and we started working on a book that actually then changed. It was going to be more focused on transhumanism, which has been like a common theme throughout my books since. So I think that's like an end goal in a lot of the agendas going on right now. And so it kind of branched off into, because then 2020 came along, and we know what happened that year. It changed the world. And that, we were still working on this other book, and it kind of, we changed direction with it. And we got to focus on this. We wrote an article together, and I wrote another article at the time. And, we exposed a lot of, basically, it was an outline for our book in like April 2020. We're like, this is what's going on, and so then we used that kind of as an outline, and we worked on it over the next 2 years, and it came out in 2022. It's called Welcome to the Masquerade, Prelude to the Coming Reset. Even though it's about what happened in those years, 2020 to 2022, it's still very, there's still a lot in there that is like, I think, just timeless information, and so we still sell a lot of copies of that. But then I came out with Wi-Fi Refugee, Plight of the Modern-day Canary, and that's really my story about what's being called electro-sensitivity, kind of a misnomer. It used to be called microwave syndrome or microwave sickness, which is more accurate because it's really an injury. It's a neurological injury, inflammation that then causes this like reactivity.
Is it all
Which
right?
I,
Sorry to
Mhm.
interrupt
Yeah,
you.
no problem.
Is it
Yeah,
all right to just rewind a moment? Because
sure.
you said that you'd been harmed. So,
Hmm.
so what happened for you to realize there was something going on?
Yeah, well, this is the interesting, this is the gift of this, I think, is that immediately, because once you are injured by it, I wasn't aware I was being injured when it happened, but once you are and it affects you this way, you react to the exposure. So you know that that's harming you because it hurts so much. I couldn't use my cell phone anymore because it caused so much pain, and it was immediate. It's still immediate. I can't
So,
use a cell phone now.
so
Yeah.
when did that happen? Because I'm
A
guessing you've had a
10
cell phone for some time. What?
I haven't. Yeah, well, I had before that. It was 10
Yeah.
years ago. 10
So,
years
so
ago. Yeah.
this did this suddenly happen, or was this
Yeah,
a
kind of.
gradual?
It's interesting, and I tell the details more in my book, but it was sort of both, because I had had some symptoms, but I was sort of ignoring them. Like I think a
Hmm.
lot of us ignore things when they don't really hit us hard. So I remember being uncomfortable using the phone, like it would heat my ear up, like it'd be
Yeah.
hot and kind of uncomfortable. And I knew like it wasn't good for us. And I had some awareness of like possible damage, but I thought I was being moderate with my usage. But what I didn't know, and I think this is where the tipping point came for me. And I think it is a tipping point for people. It's like threshold exposure level that you can't personally tolerate anymore that can send you into this inflammation cascade, a damage that's really hard to repair and usually don't repair it fully. You can recover somewhat, but most people never fully repair this injury. And now I know all the science behind what happens and why this happens, but I didn't at the time, and I didn't know that smart meters had put on my home. And so that was going on. And then there was a Wi-Fi router right under my bedroom I didn't know about the neighbor had put there. And so I think it took this time, of this like excessive exposures for me, and within a couple years, where then I hit like my threshold or tipping point after like a really long flight. Coming back from Bali, I had this long trip and those long flights and being in the airport and the airplane, and that's like massive exposures. So when I came back from that is when I noticed a big change. And that
What
big
was the
change
change? What
well, it
what
was
what actually
holding,
happened?
okay, so I was holding my smartphone, and I'd also gotten a smartphone within that year preceding, right? I hadn't had one before that. So I was holding my phone. I remember this particular moment, in fact, that I was like just texting and it hurt. My hand was like buzzing in a way it feels like electrocution. That's the only way I can describe it. Like this electric kind of shock through my arm and in my hand. And I remember it lasting after I put the phone down for like a half an hour after that, just this horrible feeling in my hand. And then if I put it to my head, it really like a pressure, like a really intense pressure. And then I noticed other people at their cell phones were on and they didn't even tell me. I'd feel it when they were approaching me. And like whole body pains, pressure, and I started having migraines. I'd never had migraines. And I finally realized the migraines were because like of my neighbor's Wi-Fi, because I'd get her to turn it off. I'd not have them, if I could get her to turn it off at night. And she just thought I was crazy. And she thought I was crazy until she I told her she hadn't turned it off and I knew. And then when she told me she's going to, and then she looked at me like, oh, maybe she's not crazy. Because I
Have
could
you heard
definitely
about the
tell.
the
Mhm.
Faraday cages that you
Oh
can
yeah,
get,
we
the
made
actual bed
one.
sheets?
Oh yeah, we built one around the bed. That's the only way
Yeah.
I could survive that until we moved. But it wasn't enough because I was constantly exposed everywhere. I was just in pain, a lot of pain. I could feel cell towers, pressure, my squeezing in my teeth and my eyes, and like just this pressure all the time. And I would do experiments, get away from out the city, go out in the wilderness, somewhere away from the exposures, and wow, the relief. And I'm telling you, everybody is under this kind of vice grip we're being squeezed in, and you won't know the difference because you don't get away from it. Most people are suffering effects that are known effects from these exposures, like insomnia, brain fog, headaches, blood pressure changes, blood sugar changes, even obesity, because it's disrupting all the cell signaling, it's disrupting thyroid function, it's disrupting everything. We have electrical signaling in our body and it's weak signaling. This is overpowering it. It's not native to the planet. It's completely different from natural EMFs in our environment that are supportive of life. And so we all feel it. And so it's not just me, it's just that I came to a point of injury that I couldn't reverse. And so what we're doing all the time when people think, well, I don't feel it and I feel okay, is you're compensating. Your body's compensating for exposures. Eventually it can't compensate anymore, and that can manifest in cancers. It can manifest in a lot of different kind of disease, but these are the diseases of civilization are coming from our poisoning our environment and with chemicals and in our foods, and also, these non-native electromagnetic fields and which are really powerful. And they're just not in harmony with our biology. They're more, so a lot of what I write about is to show how we're altering our world around us and ourselves. It's more like to be compatible. We're making our environment compatible for machines, not humans, for robots, for
So,
like technology, but not for biology.
so the title of your book that came out in 2022, The Wi-Fi
Mhm.
Refugee,
Yeah.
that's you.
Yeah, and
You
also
are,
other people. Yeah, I've met
yeah.
many, many, and there's actually millions in the world. That it's the largest like marginalized group in the world. It has to be. It's like the numbers, the official numbers are 3% of Americans, 10% in some countries, are considered electrosensitive, and we're not being accommodated. So people are just flee to the wilderness. It's encroaching there. They often suicide because they just feel like so much torture, and they don't have a job anymore. They don't have support from people. Think they're crazy. They don't, they lose their social network. They lose everything. And I've been fortunate to have a partner support me through this. So I'm one of the few who've like really made it this long, 10 years now. And I'm actually reversed some of the damage and doing a lot better, but I still don't use wireless technology because it still hurts to use it.
Do
So,
you think that the introduction of it's funny because I'm writing a book at the moment which is based upon my posts, and every day I put a post onto Facebook that's hopefully thought provoking. And I write them weeks in advance, and they're all being compiled into an A to Z, actually in alphabetical order of my posts over a year. And one of them is on smart meters, and anything with the word smart in front of it, smartphone, smart meter, smart TV. My belief is, my firm belief is, these have been introduced specifically to cause damage to us.
yeah. Well, it stands for self-monitoring and reporting technology, is one of the acronyms that SMART, stands for. There's several that are used by the U.S. military. There's other ones like that have surveillance in the title. It's about surveillance,
Yeah,
number
absolutely.
one, but also it's used for mind control. I mean,
Mm,
this is proven. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but these frequencies alter us.
mm,
And the thing is, and this is what I get into in all of my books. And my latest one is called The Red Shoes. I've got it right here. Our Devil's
yeah.
Dance with Technology and How We Can Stop It. Big 600 so pages. And I researched very thoroughly. I have tons of endnotes in all my books. And I have one I wrote in between just to give a little more background. So I had the Wi-Fi refugee, and then I have shots fired, vaccine weapons, medical tyranny, and the war against humanity. And that is a big one about what the title says, and we won't get into that. I don't want to, have our show go off, get shut down. But so that was another, but I interweave, and you've written about Tesla, and I have a lot about Tesla in these as well. Not a lot, but I'm sure you've researched about him a lot more thoroughly. But he was electrosensitive. He went through a period of time where he was very well, got very sick, and he experienced the same symptoms, this hyperreactivity, because it also affects you can become hypersensitive to sound and light, and and noise, and just like every sensation, right? And so he went through this really, severe episode of that. And I think obviously he was messing around with this, and he was really overexposed to these, fields, and harmed himself. And you could see at the end of his life how thin he was and unhealthy looking, just looked very sickly, I think. And that's common. So anyway, so yeah, what was I saying now? I lost my train of thought. But the smart
But
technology, right? Yeah,
yeah, I
smart
kind of think
technology
it's
is definitely, oh, I know what I wanted to say. So there's something called cybernetics and cyberneticians. I don't know if you've heard of this. So in the 50s, they're studying as a group of people. They were meeting in New York at the Macy's building. And so they call them these Macy's meetings. So a lot of them were never disclosed, the contents of the meetings, but it was like, branches of like the US military and CIA, and just and these brain doctors. And they were actually they had these books called like, Controlled Man. The man is the machine. So I forget, like controlling the human machine and things like this. And it was all about how to better control and, keep psycho-civilize, right, humanity, to stop us from being so violent and unpredictable, and just more controllable. I mean, of course, how they sold this to the public was like, well, there's violence in society, we need to do something about it. And they would say that it came from like the brain, and we could fix it. It's like a disease of the brain. And so they started putting electrodes in brains and like messing around, basically what Elon Musk is doing with, this what he's calling telepathy, the neural link. So they were already doing that already in the 30s, 40s, I think the first experiments I know of. But they were really mind control experiments. And, some of this was like CIA operation, we've heard of MK Ultra and all this. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so this is like tied to that. And it came out in these hearings in the 70s that they had been experimenting on unwitting participants. And it was part of this cybernetician. So cybernetics is about steering mankind. Cyber comes from to steer in Greek. And actually, that's what cyberspace is. It's steering you. This is to control us. So steering, controlling us, and what they learned at the time when they were trying to figure out how to best control us is they realized that we're inherently linked to our environment. All of our input, all the sensors we have, like if you look at it in computing terms, like the sensors and input and data from around us we use, and that if we're separated from us, so the best way to control somebody is to control the environment they're in. And they also learned that, isolation, sensory deprivation will break anybody, right? And you can then reprogram them and insert your own ideas and belief systems into people. And so this is what's been going on since, and it's just become more sophisticated. Now we call it, oh, it's just communications technology. These are just our tools. And my big theme in the new book is really about this role reversal. I mean, in short, it's about tech addiction, but that really means it's about the role reversal of tool and master. So our tools are taking over. Our tools are now smarter than us. Our tools are dictating and prompting us and telling us what to do and what to think. And, so it's really a dangerous place we're in right now. And it's like, so I call it the red shoes because of the fable told by Hans Christian Andersen that, I think is even an older story. And I tell like a little bit of a different version of it, but about the shoes, like a fundamental tool, taking over the owner, right? So it's this dance out of control. And so that's what we're seeing happening. Like we call it a tool, but it's not really a tool anymore when it's telling you what to do and it alters your behavior.
Whenever I see red shoes, and when I saw that you'd written a book with that title, I immediately went to the conspiracy theory
Yeah.
that's connected to the Vatican with the Red
Yes.
Shoe Gang, the club where they're wearing
Yes.
red shoes.
Well,
Is
that's
that?
in the book too.
Oh,
We
please
covered
hear
that.
that.
Yeah, you won't be
I'm
disappointed.
I'm not sure if it's happening over there, but here, people in many cases are being forced to have smart meters fitted, and
Oh
that
yeah.
I've actually seen the police attending people's homes with engineers that want to install one, and this has to be a red flag. I mean,
Yeah.
surely, having a smart meter or not should be optional. Why would they want to send the police out to make sure you have one fitted if it's not for a nefarious reason?
Well, absolutely. And like anything, any technology, if we're being forced to use it, we should be optional. It should be a choice. And it is like increasingly not a choice, even to not have a smartphone. Like even I can't, I mean, there's so many things I'm locked out of because I can't do the app and the QR code scanning and I can't do it. And it's like there's no accommodation for people who aren't going to do it. So that's yeah, and there was some kind of I don't remember if it was Supreme Court, but there was a case about the smart meter, somebody wanting saying this like it is against their constitutional rights because it's surveillance technology and it's being forced on their home. And you know what? They ruled that the greater good came first, that police, need to surveil comes before your rights to not be surveilled,
I thought it was
because
the other way
like
round. I thought,
well, that's how it's supposed to be, but that's what they're
yeah.
saying now. Making excuses. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it does infringe upon your rights, but we also really need to be able to stop criminals.
I
So
mean,
too bad. I mean,
as far
that's the attitude. Yeah.
as far as I can understand how the law works, I thought that to surveil someone, you needed a court order, and there needed to be justification for doing that. that it couldn't be
Yeah.
based on just a suspicion. There had to be grounds for it. But what they're
Hmm.
doing in theory, I suppose, is assuming everybody's guilty of something
Hmm.
prior to actually knowing anything about them at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the pre-crime era that we're entering in. It's like
Hmm.
thought police, pre-crime.
Thought
Like,
police.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, these, so not get a brain chip, people, please. I don't think your listeners probably would, but this is what's getting pushed next. It's like, well, as our like smart technology and our phones become so essential to every aspect of society, and a lot of this with the contact tracing that happened, pandemic years was like kind of warming us up to this as well. But
Hmm.
also if you're, then it becomes like all this biometrics data to get into your bank and whatever. It's supposed to be for security, right? Oh, just scan your retina, thumbprint, but next it's going to be like the safest and best thing because you could, especially when it comes to like needing, so-called needing your phone is like, well, you can lose it, the battery could die. Why not just integrate it into your biology so you always have it with you? It's going to be a lot better and a lot more convenient. And then it's like
Hmm.
people don't even consider that having this brain chip. And first of all, I've written extensively about the experiments that have been done so far and even on animals in recent years too. And they're not doesn't look good what happens to these
What's
animals and
happened?
people.
What
Well, I
has
mean,
happened
you
with
can
these animals?
just destroy, leave people psychotic as vegetables, kill them, killing animals.
They're
They
sort of
don't seem to have a
lobotomizing
good,
them.
yes, they don't have a good outcome so far from what I've seen in research. They pretend at first, like, oh yeah, we cured this person of violence, and then they don't show you the long-term effects, which is what was happening in the 50s. And so far, Musk has had human trials, but he won't disclose the names. And he says, oh, there was one person I know of so far, but oh, he's doing fine. I'm like, okay, great, we'll take your word for it.
Yeah, that man's not to be
But
trusted at
I
all.
know, no. And, people don't consider that because they're saying, oh, you could download things into your brain and you won't like, just like on the Matrix movies, and you could suddenly know all these things, without any effort. And you don't consider the two-way street that's going on with this,
Hmm.
like that you're being listened to anything you think. You're being told what to think. And what are you downloading? I mean, what do you have access to? Like the way things are going with the internet and the search engines, it's harder and harder to do any real research. And you're just getting a lot of, fact-checked so-called articles coming up. And that's what you're going to have like access to is like Wikipedia and Google and
Hmm.
all the mainstream, whatever they want you to believe propaganda, and that's not making you smarter. And the thing is, and
Well, it's doing
again,
the opposite, isn't it? Because
yeah,
you're not having to learn
yes,
and research these things for yourself. And this is what I say to people all the time. Although my kids went to university, as far as I can see, in a lot of cases, when you get a degree or a qualification in something, all it seems to really demonstrate is your ability to regurgitate. It doesn't necessarily mean you
yeah.
understand or you can go and practice that particular skill. It just means that you can verbatim repeat, almost word for word, what you've been brainwashed with.
Yes, and people can't even do that anymore. Now it's more about knowing where to access information, not even having that recall. It's like, well, here, oh, you asked me a question. Here's Siri to answer. Here's Alexa. Here's the smart tech assistant. Let me ask it. I don't remember anything myself, but it knows. It'll
Mm,
remember, and then it's like, so you don't even have the recall. You don't even learn that now. And so you're offloading everything to technology and all of your responsibilities. And that leaves you what? What does it leave you when you're not with it? You have nothing,
mm. Yeah,
So
you know
this is why
nothing.
it's so important to be able to exercise the skills, not to like. So the story of the red shoes is really about the actual fable is about a girl who gives up her autonomy and for the promise of convenience and luxury, for the promise of being taken care of. It's a lazy way out, right? So she's doing okay. She's made her own red shoes. She's in the forest foraging food. It's a little bit hard, but she's like independent and she's creative. She's created her own life. And along comes this gilded carriage with an old lady in it who says, hey, you poor little orphan girl, let me take you home and take care of you. Like you won't have to work, you won't have to worry about anything. And this is the gilded carriage to me now is technology coming and saying, I'm going to take away this burden from you. Step inside, it'll be great. And what happens to the girl after that is that what she learns very quickly is that she's isolated in this the wealthy, woman's house. She doesn't have any contact outside of that, any friends or anything. She doesn't have anything she's doing for herself. She's not working anymore, but she's not fulfilled because of that. I mean, she's sedentary. Her shoes, the woman takes and burns and destroys them. So she had her handmade pair of red shoes that are destroyed in a fire without her consent. She's made to sit and be pretty and be quiet. But of course, that leads to what? It leads to addiction. And a lot of people get into addictions because they're not fulfilled, because they don't have real satisfying work to do, creative, satisfying work. They don't feel like they have a place. People are so lonely because they're so physically isolated from each other. They're physically isolated from nature, from healing energy of nature, from, feeling connected to what we really need to be connected to feel good and fulfilled. So she's taken out of nature, put into an artificial environment, and has her sovereignty taken away. And that leads to her grabbing for something else to make her fill that void. And so she immediately grabs like the artificial red shoes, the technological red shoes, which are at the shoemaker has, and they're glittering, and he's one of these enablers too. He's like kind of like, yeah, get these, right? And so she gets them, and then there's these other male characters who are like cursing the shoes, and then she starts dancing out of control, and people see her start to dance out of control, but they don't do anything to help her. And then by the time it's too late, it's like she's almost dead. I mean, she's dying because she's not eating anymore, and this is what addiction does to us. We stop taking care of ourselves. We're not listening to our body's prompts anymore to eat at the right time, and even just drink water at the right time or exercise. Like, we're so engaged in the thing that's enthralling us, the magical dancing red shoes that are so exciting and glittering. That technology, this is just like wizardry, and we're so enthralled. And then we lose track of time, we lose track of our surroundings, of our bodily needs, and suddenly we're disabled because of that. And so that's what happens to her. She's dancing and dancing and dancing, and she can't take the shoes off, and she eventually has to have them cut off with an axe by this woodsman, and to get her and with her feet in them. And so she's crippled, a beggar the rest of her life. So if you do survive that devil's dance with the tech, then you're rendered disabled and
So
dependent. Yeah.
do you think that this was a big part of the lockdown that we went through in 2020 to disconnect us even further and make us
Yeah.
more dependent? Because like I said to you before we started recording, it's brilliant being able to communicate with people like this over Zoom, and that we now have this technology. And my eldest son lives in Vancouver, so we can FaceTime, and it's lovely. But it's also at the same time broken that connection of physical contact, to actually be in the presence of someone, and the frequency and vibration that we all emit is so important, because we've all experienced it, where you walk into a room and you say, I can cut this atmosphere with a knife, or that person's got a really positive
Hmm.
vibe, or whatever.
Yeah.
We're missing that human connection, and it is like they are trying to, well, they're trying to break every essence of us,
Yeah.
and who we really are, and break our connection. And that chip that you talked about, I've actually had people say to me that they will get it as soon as it's
Mm,
available,
mm,
and I just want to say to them, I
mm.
think you should. Because if
Yeah.
you're that far gone, if you think it's a
Right.
good idea, there's nothing I can say to you that's going to make any difference. Go get it. And, perhaps your family will let me know when your funeral takes place, and I'll come along and say a few words maybe, or send them a card if I
Okay.
can't make it.
Yeah.
You're actually, what you're doing is you're destroying yourself, and you think it's great. And a lot of people will see technology. We've seen the queues when a new smartphone's launched. People
Mm.
will queue to have something that
Yeah.
harms them a bit more, spies on them a bit more, and is a little bit more, um, well, it's tyranny ultimately, and they're losing themselves to it. And the other thing I think with ChatGPT, for example, and Siri,
Mm.
is
Mm.
I remember my kids when they were younger, they'd come home from school and say, Dad, I've got my homework. I can't make head or tail of this. Please, will you help me? And
Mm.
those moments that we had where we would sit together and we're all scratching our heads, are gone, because now you can say to your child, here's the
Yeah.
tablet, here's the smartphone, here's the laptop. Go on
Yeah.
ChatGPT, ask that. I'm busy doom scrolling on social media.
Right. You've summed it up really well. I mean, that's the sad reality that I think that's a very normal, now the new normal, vignette of home life, and that's the disconnection. And you're absolutely right that that was one of the goals, I think, of the pandemic. And in fact, in my new book, I cite an article called "A Pandemic Within a Pandemic" about screen addiction. And
Mm,
it's statistically screen addiction, tech addiction, gaming addiction, all the different varieties of tech addiction went up enormously during that time. I mean, obviously, predictably. I mean, of course, what are you going to do? What are people going to do when you're like, well, you can't go anywhere. But here's a screen. You can just be entertained endlessly. You don't have to worry about not going anywhere because you can Zoom chat all your friends that are actually in the next room or down the street, and you
mm,
don't have to see them in person. You don't have to go into work anymore. And it's like it was a grooming period, I think, and it
yeah.
worked because there has been a big change. And in fact, mainstream articles were saying things about humans warming up to machines during the pandemic. Warming up to machines is how New York Times wrote it. And they wrote it as a good thing. They said, I mean, they didn't say it was bad. It was like they said, oh, humans have germs and machines don't. They're not a biohazard like humans are. It was this kind of idea that was implanted in our brains, which is all wrong because machines are hazardous in so many ways, which I keep trying to, not just the EMFs, which is a big factor, but there are chemical emissions from the screens. There's fluoride gas emissions from your lithium ion batteries when you're using your technology. There are very harmful chemicals coming out of these things. So, uh, like they're very hazardous. And so but it has seduced us and it's groomed us into believing that, biology is dangerous, but machines are kind of not so much, that they're somehow sterile and they're not dangerous to us and they can be better for us. They can, now it's all about AI, right? And as I was completing this book and publishing it in June this year, I was writing about how suddenly AI is just everywhere. And it's been worse since I published it. It's like, you can't get away from these like AI do this, AI that. Anytime you're online, people are talking about it more. People are talking to it. They're
Mm.
engaging with it more. And I'm warning against that for several reasons. One is it's very environmentally destructive. So our use of text has repercussions in our environment and our natural world because of the mining, of the human exploitation that
Well,
goes
the
along with that.
water as
The
well. The water
water
consumption for AI, something
consumption
like
is huge.
ChatGPT uses an
Yes.
incredible amount of water just to keep it
Just for
going.
a few prompts is
And
massive. Yeah.
I've also noticed that sometimes I'll post something, and someone will comment on the post, and I can instantly tell that it's not them. They want to be
Mm,
perceived as being more knowledgeable than the person that's put the post up, knowing something they don't know. And I'll look at it and I think, well, I've seen this kind of writing before, starting sentences with an and, lots of hyphens and not the
mm,
proper use of grammar, semicolons and colons. This is ChatGPT.
wow.
They've copied and pasted my post and said, give me an answer for this that makes me look like I know what I'm
Wow.
talking about. And I see it every single day.
Mm,
And some people send me information saying, here are my thoughts on what you were talking about on YouTube. And I can see straight away that it's
mhm.
ChatGPT that's generated it. And I think that the problem is, and I actually know one particular person who is writing books on my specialist subject Tartaria that is using ChatGPT to write
Oh
them
no.
and
Oh no.
actually has come out and said that. Now, my like I show people all the time, my research comes from things like this, you know,
Yes.
old books and things that I
Yeah.
find, old documents, CIA documents, things that are
Hmm.
sent to me anonymously in the post.
Mm.
But I am surrounded by old encyclopedias
Hmm.
and that is where I get my information from. I've got lots of new books as well,
Right.
but these people are just getting something else to do the work. And there's a huge podcaster now. She appeared overnight about February this
Mm.
year. a huge following on Facebook as well, talking about conspiracy theories, but her main specialist subject is Tartaria, and she won't
Hmm.
give any interviews. And I know
Hmm.
why. A big podcaster in America actually took the words from the words has actually escaped me, but took, if you like, the script from one of her podcasts and put that into ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT if it had generated this.
Oh
And it
no.
said, yes, this is
Oh
generated by
no.
ChatGPT. And then it turns out
Oh,
all of her, and so she holds the microphone like this, and she's quite attractive. She's an English
yeah.
girl, and
Right.
she talks like this, and it's all kind of subtle and a bit
Oh
there's
wow.
an air of mystique to it.
Mm.
And the reason she can't give an interview on that subject is because she hasn't researched any of it. She doesn't really
Mm.
know any of this
Mm.
stuff. It's all being done for her. So
Mm.
what she does is she does a video, then gets runs it through AI, so it looks like she's talking, but
Wow.
actually it's computer
Well,
generated.
she might as well be a robot. I mean, she's right there at
Absolutely.
that. I mean, this is what, so we're looking at human obsolescence. I mean, AI is dangerous because it is going to make humanity obsolete. I have a chapter called Human Obsolescence in my
Yeah,
new
it's the
book.
Terminator.
It
Skynet.
absolutely
Mm.
Skynet, which is interestingly, Skynet has launched new satellites this year. It's a military, UK owned, military.
Oh, I
They have
worked with
satellites that
Skynet
go.
in the
You
90s.
you did.
Yeah, tracking. Yeah,
Oh
tracking.
wow. Well,
Mm.
yeah, and what I learned is actually the Terminator movies borrowed that name from it was originally first the satellites from the
Yeah,
six.
we were using
Yeah.
LEO satellites, low Earth
Right.
orbiting satellite. We were tracking with the
Right.
well, the Serious Crime Squad. We were tracking,
Mm,
and then we were tracking very expensive cars owned by very powerful and wealthy people.
really?
Not because they didn't know, they wanted this
Oh
kit
yeah.
fitted. So
Right.
I worked for a company that basically was their sales arm and installation arm
Mm,
of their division, and they were in the city in London. They were on the stock market, and
wow.
I worked with them for probably a couple of years, and I saw some things.
Oh, I bet. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I
what they'd
bet.
sometimes do is they'd fit one on a car and the person wouldn't know it was
Sure.
installed, and the police were tracking it. But this system, and I had one in my car, and it malfunctioned, and it was a demonstration kit. It had the ability to start the engine, lock the doors, lock the person
Oh
in the
yeah.
car, and shut the engine down,
Right.
and trap them in.
Yeah.
And it was listening all the time. You could actually talk, as you could say something, and there would be someone on the other end. So you could actually say to it, I need a cash point, or I need fuel for my car, or where's my nearest hotel that's open? I can't get home. And the person would suddenly come to life the other end, and you go straight through to a call center, and there'd be someone in there saying, "Hi, guy, yeah, no problem at all. Your nearest cash point's 500 yards on the left." What people didn't realize was it was listening all the time. And when
Right.
my kids were quite young when this happened,
Wait,
but
when was this again? When
this
was this?
was this was 1990 1996 to about
Wow.
98. I was working with them, and they fitted this kit on my car, and I was at a set of traffic lights in a city where I used to live called Milton Keynes, and it malfunctioned, and it locked me and my kids in the car at a set of
No.
traffic lights in the middle on a
Oh my gosh.
Saturday afternoon at a busy
What?
road, and we couldn't start the car. The alarm's going off. We were trapped inside
Oh
it.
wow. And
Mm.
that's amazing. It shows how old, and that's basically self-driving vehicles right now. That's what that
Yeah,
is. And even
yeah,
the electric vehicles that aren't yet self-driving can do all of these things. And do you remember the show The Knight Rider? Knight
absolutely.
Rider in the
Kit.
80s,
Yeah,
Kit. You keep saying it has this kit on it. Now I keep thinking, what's the
yeah,
name of that car, right? That
Kit.
that
Yeah.
that AI, voice in the car was Kit. Right. And we thought it was so great, like, but
Mm.
I watched that when I was a kid. We were waiting for it to come on Friday night, right? And
So
watch
isn't it
The Knight Rider.
interesting? Because I
Yeah.
have a theory, and it's shared by a lot of other people, and it is only a theory that there is nothing new under the sun, and this technology has been here before, and perhaps it might go all the way back to maybe even Atlantis. I don't know, but
Mhm.
when they bring out these things like the Tesla, which is an anagram of steal, as in
Oh, yeah.
theft. So
Right.
this technology, it was there already. We watched it in the 80s. It was Knight Rider.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody got that idea from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think that perhaps before things come out into the general public arena, that this stuff has been around for a very, very long time. And I'm not talking a few years. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
a
Well, it doesn't
very
make
long
sense
time.
otherwise, honestly. There's no way these things can develop so quickly, what
No,
we're being told. I mean, it just, there's like a few decades or a decade. I mean, come on, there's just, it seems impossible. And I don't believe in that linear timeline we're led to believe like we were cavemen and then and it
no,
just keeps
not
going
at all.
like we're just get smarter and smarter. And now we're just so smart. And also this idea that we're evolving into that it's a natural evolution to then the next stage of which is merging with machine, and which is what futurists openly discuss, and they call the singularity, which is
Mm,
when we merge with machine and some point. And that's just evolution, right? That's just a natural trajectory. It's not natural.
that's not
It's
natural at all.
artificial. It wouldn't happen naturally without that all the money and funding going into this and it being pushed on us, by
Mm,
our governments and forced on us. It's not like we all decided we wanted that, you know.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's like again, I don't believe in Darwinian evolution anyway.
me neither.
There's so
That was
many holes
funded
in
by the
that.
Vatican. The
Right.
Vatican wanted to be in control of an alternative narrative to the theory of Adam and Eve, and as I keep telling people, and I had this, it turned into almost an argument on an interview I was on in a radio station in New York over the weekend. I said, people talk about the Bible and they talk about Genesis and the story of Adam and Eve. And now the story of Adam and Eve is to take the rib from one being and create another. That is cloning. You've cloned.
Mm,
And whether it's a metaphor or not, they're still
mhm,
describing that process. So it doesn't matter. And then I said, and also you've got to consider that the Bible is based upon the Torah, and the Torah is based upon the Epic of Gilgamesh, which describes a
mhm,
race of superior beings coming here and cloning
mm.
us to get us to mine.
Oh
And,
my
and,
gosh.
and, and a lot of Christians sort of went nuts about that. And I said, at the end
Uh-huh.
of the day, you can go as nuts as you like, but what you can't do is you can't dismiss the fact that the Epic of Gilgamesh is a lot older. That it says what it says. It has the story of Adam and Eve in there. It has the story of Noah and the deluge
Mm,
and the great flood. It is all in there and it is older. So you cannot like what I'm saying, but you can't argue with something that actually exists.
yeah.
And a lot of people don't like that. So we kind of
Mhm.
know that the theory of evolution, the origin of species by Charles Darwin, is
Right.
an absolute crock of shit.
Oh yeah.
We know that, and I say to people all the time, if I've evolved to meet my environment, why am I lactose intolerant? I have hay
Yeah.
fever. I need to wear glasses, and I burn in the sun.
Right. Probably, well, a lot of that's probably from poisoning from certain kinds of injections that we were forced.
I've never had any.
Oh, you didn't? Wow. Well,
Oh
that's
God,
sad.
no, 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 no,
Oh,
no,
you're
no. Even as
lucky.
a child, no,
Wow,
no, I've
you
never had any.
dodged that.
I've
Well,
had a
then,
tetanus shot
but you've
because
probably
I
been
got drilled
poisoned
through
with
my hand, but that's
Oh
about
gosh.
it.
Yeah, that's bad. That's bad too. But yeah, there's a lot of, well, obviously just in our water and food
Mm,
contamination. It's in air. You can't really,
yeah.
none of us can really get away from that. And then again, these environments, the electromagnetic fields are changing around us
Mm,
everywhere. And that changes us and it weakens us. I do strongly feel and that we are being denied our true potential to be a lot healthier and stronger and mentally fit as well, are just, it's like you can just see the dumbing down happening in the last century or two. Just read some like, just read literature from 100 years ago. And, a lot of people can't even understand it. I mean, the
mm,
language is so dense and rich, and there's
mm,
vocabulary we've lost. People used to converse. It was an art. They memorized verse as well,
mm,
poetry. And I'm trying to do that again now because I realize it's not just like something to do after dinner to entertain each other, what they may used to do or to kind of show off. It's about enhancing your recall and your faculties, as if you can learn, if you can like exercise that, right? Because if you're not using that, you're losing it, and you're forging like new neural pathways that are more like a
Mm.
computer, less like a human. And it interferes with it matters because it interferes with your free will and the level of critical thinking and being able to do that.
I've noticed this with my parents that my dad is older than they're divorced, but and have been for a long time. But I've noticed with my parents, that they're both sort of about to hit 80, and I've noticed my mum decline a lot faster than my dad. My dad, although he now wears glasses a bit more than he did, but he is mentally so sharp. He's actually, and I hate this to say, I hate to have to say this because we
Mhm.
don't get on brilliantly, but he's the most intelligent person I've ever met.
Mm,
And I say to my brother who does see him all the time, I said to him, why do you think dad is so much sharper than mum? I know genetically, different parents, different genetics and so on. But and he said that the key with my father is two things. One, he gets up at 7 o'clock every morning, goes for a swim, swims a
mm,
mile. The second is
right.
he plays the guitar and the piano, and he plays for an
Uh-huh.
hour every day. So he's using parts of his brain that a lot of people don't use anymore. And my mum, she goes for a coffee with her friends every day, and she talks
Mm.
about problems, ailments, bunions, a bad back. My dad doesn't do that. If you said to my if my dad fell down the stairs and broke his leg at the bottom, and you said, "Are you all right?" He'd say, "Of course I'm all right. There's
Wow,
nothing wrong with
yeah,
me. I'm fine. I don't need to go to the doctors.
yeah.
I'm fine." And he'd
Hmm.
drag himself to his car and go and do what he was going to do
Yep,
anyway. Whereas my
yep.
mum stopped driving now, and because of this and because of that. And I think that like you said, use it or lose it. And he
Hmm.
treats his brain as a muscle, and every day it gets a workout. And I
Right.
think that the more we rely on AI, the less we are working out that muscle. And you mentioned also poetry, and I wanted to ask you,
Mm,
my
yeah.
favorite poem is If by Rudyard Kipling. And
Oh,
basically it says,
yeah.
do you know it?
I don't know it I don't think I do.
Well, basically,
Yeah.
the bottom line with it is that it says that if you can treat someone that's incredibly wealthy the same as someone who has nothing, if you can walk amongst kings and you can walk amongst peasants and still hold your head up high, if you can treat
Mm,
success and loss the
okay.
same, um, and if basically no matter what life throws at you, you can stand with your head
Oh,
held
yeah.
high, take it on the chin, and keep going. And if you can, you know, lose everything and with broken tools, pick up and
Mm,
start again. And ultimately, the bottom line is that in the end, if you can do all of this, then the world will be yours, and you are a man, my son. And I used to read it to, I mean, it's a
oh,
lot longer than that, and I'm not going to do it
yeah. I
now, but
sound familiar now. Now I think I know. Yeah, I'm like, I probably have heard it, but right. I
my
should add it
kids
to my
know
list
it.
of, I'll add it to my list of poems to
Oh, it's
memorize.
beautiful, and I used to read it to my children, and I remember a few years back now, I used to be able to verbatim word for word, and I
Mhm.
haven't read it in a long time. And a few years back now, maybe 10 years ago, I actually put Facebook on, went live, and just decided to recite it. And people
Mm.
were like, "Bloody hell, that's amazing!"
Oh,
And they
yeah,
weren't expecting me to come out with it, but it's powerful, and I think we can lose ourselves in that, and I think so much has been bastardized and hijacked, and our music is another
yeah,
aspect of that, where it's the wrong
absolutely.
frequency thanks to the
Oh, yeah.
Rockefellers,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
um, and a lot of it is designed to lower our frequency
Mm-hmm.
and cause violence in
Yeah.
many cases. But one thing I wanted to ask you was,
Mm-hmm.
I have views on 5G and that there
Mm-hmm.
is nothing good about that. And
Yeah.
it seemed to be here. The most important thing they did when we went into lockdown was to install masks
Yeah.
that don't provide you with a signal at all. And
Yes.
as far as I can see, these are what we would call long COVID, the
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
respiratory problems.
Yeah.
People are now talking about 6G being rolled
Yep.
out when 5G is something most people never get a signal for.
Yeah.
I read an article a couple of years ago about a cattle farmer here that had recently had a load of pregnant cows. They'd given birth. They were in a
Mhm.
particular field, and this field had a 5G mast in, and every single one of the calves were born
Mhm.
blind.
Yep. I was just going to say cataracts. Cows get cataracts near cell towers. They birth them. They birth babies with cataracts, or like
Mm.
you're saying, they're blind, or they could be deformed. But yeah, that's doesn't surprise me at all. And we have the same thing happening here. In fact, interestingly, we had moved to Arizona from Maryland in 2015 when like, after I actually, it was 2014 that I first got oh, there's your pug. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's
He
cute.
wanted to come up.
That looks like a Shih Tzu.
It's a pug zoo.
It's a pug zoo. It's a
So he's
mix. Oh,
half
what a
pug. Yes, his
cutie.
dad was a pug and his mum was a Shih
Oh
Tzu.
gosh, that's too cute. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but
Oh,
he
I'm dying.
he's my shadow, and he wanted to come up. So he
Oh,
doesn't.
that's
He's
good.
often on my lap, but he wasn't.
Yeah,
And yeah. Oh no,
that's
he's
cute.
going now. So do you want to
All
say
right.
goodbye? You
Oh,
want to say goodbye,
bye.
Arthur?
Oh, that's too cute. Oh my gosh. Dying of cuteness
It's my
now.
grandchild until my
Yeah.
kids
Oh
produce
yeah.
them. Mm.
Right. Yeah, we've got our own fur babies here, cats. But anyway, what was I saying? Right.
Cows
So the
being born blind.
5G. Oh, I know
Mm.
what I was gonna say. So this in 2020, like you were saying, all these things were being installed while we couldn't do anything about them. In fact, the World Health, Organization declared the pandemic like basically on the day that there was going to be a
Sorry
worldwide
to interrupt you. Did you
protest.
say
That's okay.
World Health Organization or
Yes.
did you say Bill Gates?
He's the largest private donor, so
It's just the two
yeah,
things are the same,
yeah,
aren't they?
yeah. I mean, he funds it, so
Hmm.
right.
He is
Bill
the World
Gates
Health
declared.
Organization. Hmm.
I'll rephrase that.
Yeah. So when Bill Gates
Yeah,
decided, yeah.
he decided, and it happened to be on the day of, or like very close to the day of the first worldwide protest against 5G rollout, which was involved 200 countries were involved in this, and they couldn't gather, right? Like, so you couldn't have it, right? I mean, some people did anyway, but it definitely, and it took it away from the news, right? Like this bombarded the
Mm.
news, that was going to be in the news, and it wasn't. And we were made to move, right? Because we had been fighting the smart meters coming into our valley where we didn't have any radio frequency, EMF, anything. We had found this pristine place. I was doing a lot better. And then our utility company said, we're going to put smart meters, and they had actually had something on their website saying they were never going to use smart meters, and then they just, suddenly they're going to do
Yeah.
them. And they didn't even need to. It was still actually they were able to remotely read our meters through the wire. Like there's something, the digital ones where like they sent it through the power line communication, which isn't great, but it's a lot better than the wireless. And so we're like, they don't even need to do it. Like there's no reason,
Mm.
right? It's not saving anybody coming out reading them. And so there were others in our valley who were also there for the same reason I was. And so we were protesting this. We were actively fighting it. We only got wind of it. They were not even going to tell us, till right
Mm.
before because somebody was out, utility worker were like, what are you up to? And told, oh yeah, we're gonna update your meters soon. I'm like, what? Right. So no, you're not. And anyway, it was something like a year and a half we fought, and then we lost, and we lost right around that time was like when we were supposed. I never did lockdown thing. I mean, no, we didn't
Me
do that,
neither.
but we
No,
didn't do
I
anything
carried
different.
on.
We didn't carry it on, right? But our
Mm.
neighbors, some of the neighbors were, which is absurd. We were in a very rural, remote area. Neighbors are half a mile away, and they're like sequestering themselves.
Mm.
But guess who got the free pass to go out and do stuff? The essential workers. They got the essential, the hall pass, right? While we were in class. They were out putting the smart grid up.
Yeah.
So we had to move because we lost that fight. And yeah, it was just like some of them were met with some really angry. There was at least one case of somebody bringing out a shotgun and saying, get off my land," American
Oh, that's lovely to
cowboy
hear
style.
that.
So I was like happy to hear that. But
Yeah, me too.
yeah, some of that happened. I don't know what eventually happened, but people, it was just absurd. And we just ended up going off grid. We moved to a different state and we went off grid completely, so we don't have to deal with that at all.
Mm.
But that was what happened. And we predicted 5G was going to piggyback off the smart grid. And they said, no, 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 that's not what happened. Guess what? A year after we moved, 5G came in. There wasn't
Yeah.
even any Gs there before that. And it's happening faster. So they roll these out, new generations out for several different reasons. But one is that what happens is it's almost like about every decade there's a new one. And what happens is that makes the studies that they're officially conducting into long-term health effects that have to be 10 years long obsolete. So as soon as the results come out that yes, this is causing brain tumors and cancers and whatever in the rats, oh, obsolete because that was old technology. We're not using it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. That's one of the tricks. There's many tricks they do to like keep it supposedly safe for the, like that they're doing their due diligence and supposedly like they're regulating these things and nothing like that's happening. But it's also like just more experimentation, trying out a different frequency, and it's the slowly boiled frog pot scenario, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you're like, if you took if you had a time traveler come here from even like a few decades ago and just pop, if you went from like even 1980s and like got plopped into today, you would feel this change. I
Mm.
guarantee you would feel it. Anybody would feel it and they would say, what the hell is going on? This
Mm.
does not feel good. Right. And it's like, but you don't feel it as you get, I can even relate to that, like in the sense of now that I've had a lot of recovery time and away from it, I can now handle more exposures in town and when I, go places. But I notice the exposures right when I go into town, but then my body kind of feels like it compensates better now, right? So I kind of get used to it. And but it's also just getting used to this like new normal, not feeling as good. But then you're
Is
like,
it
oh, I'm not.
lethargy? Do you feel
Oh,
lethargic?
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like it is. And it's a weird, I really feel that mind control aspect when I go into any kind of shop, especially when there's music on and the lights
Hmm.
and everything. And you just kind of go, it's like getting high and you're like kind of zone out and you don't really
Yeah.
have any thoughts anymore. And it helps you because it puts you into a state of like, oh, I want to buy things. Oh, isn't that pretty? Doesn't that look
Hmm.
nice? And I've made so many poor shopping decisions under this influence where it looks great and I think I want that and I take it home and I say what was I thinking, why did I buy this? I was
Yeah.
under the influence of something. I mean, it's absolutely chemically changes you and your brain and everything, so we're under these influences.
Have you thought about this is something that I've been looking into since I started studying Tartaria, and then I went back to look at the Sumerians and I wondered about if you buy yourself a baseball cap or whatever hat
um,
you want to wear,
mhm,
and just run some coils of copper
mhm.
in the lining, and then put that on, and when you're
Yeah.
out and about, see if that does bounce the signal.
Sure. It can. I mean, actually, well, it's not great because I've experimented with shielded materials a lot, and some of them are copper or silver, and you can kind of reflect it, but then without being in a perfect Faraday cage, you don't really know if you might be creating like a hot spot by like
Yeah,
bringing it back, or it's complicated and it doesn't really work that simply. I found that in terms of just how I feel, um, not really getting technical in measuring fields. I've used shielded hats and then I've used just wool hats. And the wool feels like it
natural
helps
fiber.
more.
Mm.
Yeah, it feels better. And I don't know if it's all changing it. Here's something fascinating. And this is what I learned in my recent research for the new book and I've written about. So when they do experiments on I interviewed Dr. Martin Paul, and he's done tons of research. He's a scientist who's come out with so many papers over the decades researching the harmful effects of EMFs. And what he explained to me in a phone interview is that it's the electric and magnetic part. It's not just it's not really radiation and thermal effects, which is what the industry wants to focus on all the time. He's like, that's not really the problem. The problem is that the electric and magnetic portions are a lot stronger because they're coherent, what they call coherent in physics. In natural EMFs are incoherent, which means they're a lot weaker, and we're used to these, right? So the coherent. So he says that all of these tests to study the effects, biological effects of these new frequent, like a cell phone or wireless thing, are done in a way to set up to fail because they're put into something called a reverberation chamber, which actually changes the coherent non-native EMF to incoherent.
Oh. Right.
And so there's something they do in these chambers. So you can change the field, is what this is saying, right? You can
Mm,
do something. I mean, it doesn't change it completely to natural because there's still effects that they are showing, but the effects would be so much worse if they were not to do this weird thing they do. And he said even independent researchers, they just made it as a model of standardized things so that if you're going to do the standardized thing, you got to follow it and without questioning this, who set up this standard? It's obviously set up to make the tests fail to
mm,
show the real effects, and what it also tells us is that those who are pushing this technology on us know how to change it back to something that's not harmful. And they're not giving us that
no.
access, right? So I bet you anything like Elon Musk's smartphone is different, like
Oh,
their phones are
yes.
different, and that they're not producing coherent. Maybe it's just incoherent energy and it doesn't harm them.
My wife and I
Um,
have these
so,
little phone wallets. I suppose a phone
oh
case,
yeah,
but it's actually more like a wallet, and it is a small Faraday cage,
yes,
and we keep them in those. And a
great.
friend of mine has a microwave. He doesn't use the microwave for cooking. It's not been plugged in for a very long time, for years.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go to bed, they actually put their phones inside the
Oh,
microwave.
great. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and they turn the router off. They actually turn it off at the
Yeah.
mains. They don't have a smart meter or anything, so they actually turn everything off, and their
Mm.
phones are
Great.
put in
Yeah.
a microwave. And I think that that's fantastic. And the interesting thing is, he's never ill. He's very
Yep.
positive. He's
Mm-hmm.
up at 6 o'clock. By 7 o'clock, he's writing books, and
Yeah.
he's got a huge YouTube channel here in the UK. It's called Richard Vobes, and that's
Oh
where
yeah. Yeah.
so John Hamer has been on his
Yeah.
channel several times over the years,
Mm-hmm.
and he does all these things. So he's working on the basis that prevention's better than cure. Is there any advice you would give to people from your
Yeah.
research of what they could
Absolutely.
do?
Yeah, lots of things. And that all of that is great advice. If I had even known that, here's what's really important. If you've had any, you can relate to anything I'm saying, like you feel it heating, you feel something from this that isn't good, that's art means you've already had some injury. If the more injury, you're just going to have repeat injury, you will get into something worse. Like, so now's the time to do something preventative, right?
Mm,
Step back from this before it's like you're forced into it. I mean, I'm glad I was forced into it because I love how my lifestyle now. I don't know if I would have chosen it otherwise. Sometimes we need like pain as a motivator to make real change,
yeah,
but
yeah,
I wouldn't also wish this on people. It's very, very inconvenient to have gone through what we have, very financially difficult and a lot of upheaval. So I would say, well, I would love just to see people to like to hardwire things. You don't have to use Wi-Fi, number one. I mean, the routers now comes without an off button for Wi-Fi. It used to be you could turn it on and off,
yeah,
but they should still have an Ethernet cable. Excuse me, even if you don't have an adapter for that on your new computer, there are adapters to put, to get the Ethernet to adapt. There's some kind of like in between adapters you can get, but you can have that Wi-Fi disabled internally. You usually should be able to do it on get into your account yourself, and it's just a button you click. Like there's like things you click like off, especially because a lot of the routers aren't just Wi-Fi now. It says 5G too. Next there'll be 6G on there, so you can disable those aspects. So
yes,
definitely disable things you're not using, and in your phone too. Like you're not, there's all kinds of things that you've granted permission on your phone and you don't even know. I recently looked into a friend's phone and was showing her there was something that said that you gave permission to biosensor data collection. So it's already assuming you have biosensors on your body and it's collecting data. It's collecting data. There's one that says physical tracking, walking. Are you walking, swimming in a car or whatever? It's all buried in there. So you really need to go, if you want to have one of these phones at all, which I think we should be moving away from, but you should make it safer. And there's
mm,
lots of ways you can do that. And you can turn off things, GPS, there's all kinds of wireless things. You can put it on airplane mode most of the time. You can do a lot of things on airplane mode on your phone
yeah,
without having to constantly be exposed. Like if you're not actively using it to make a call or text, why is that on? You shouldn't, first of all, it helps you set up a boundary in your life, a personal boundary that's healthier that we used to have, like where you're not on call 24/7. You
yes,
shouldn't have to feel that way. It's a lot of stress and pressure. You shouldn't have to feel like you have to answer the phone on the toilet. And people do. They answer the phone
mm,
on the toilet. They feel like they have to respond immediately. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that's what we have to keep saying to ourselves and asking that question. Okay, I can do this now. Does it mean it's healthy? Does it mean it's good for me? Is it making my life better? Is it really doing that? So ask those questions, put it in its place. Like, and you said you have a Faraday cage bat. I used to have that when I still had a cell phone. That's great because you can block, you could still have it on. You don't have to push the airplane mode. You can just like
Mm,
put it in. There's like usually two envelopes. Like one is like the full Faraday, and the other is like you can get some signal and get a text, but not a call or something. Or it'll block it, like you'll get the signal on one side, but it'll block it in your body side. That's good. I wouldn't say these sticker people put a lot of faith into like all these kind of what I think of as like a little bit woohoo new age kind of gadgets of like that promise to, protect you by putting a sticker on something. I've never measurably seen a change in these fields or felt it. More importantly, I don't feel a difference if somebody has one of these things and they say their phone is now safe and they bring it to me. I'm like, no, it isn't. I feel it. It's not
yeah.
doing anything. And these are very expensive. So um, don't bring it to your bed, you know, put it back in its place as a tool. It shouldn't be constantly bothering you, and it shouldn't be constantly interfering with this artificial frequency with your natural brain frequencies, So knowing all the myriad ways it can harm you and what it's doing is really a helpful start to motivate people to take action. Turning things off at night, even from the perspective of like blue light, and
Mm,
which is mimics sort of daytime light, like using screens late at night is going to interrupt your ability to fall asleep and sleep well,
absolutely.
stay
Mm,
asleep. And I've definitely experienced that. Like just I usually don't do it, but I recently had done it, like watch something late at night, and then I just couldn't sleep. And I usually can sleep great because I don't have the interference otherwise. But I mean, we're getting the melatonin that we create for sleep is happening all day long. So
mm,
like when you're using screens all day and you don't have any kind of relationship with that and like the sunlight cycles, then you're really just screwing up everything. And that's going to
mm,
cascade into all kinds of hormonal issues because that's like a
mm.
master, like regulator for your other hormones. So no wonder people are having all these like hormonal problems
Yeah.
just from the light signaling aspect. So think about it's like having the lights on at night if you don't turn that stuff off. And so how are you going to sleep with the lights on? It's difficult. So it's not going to be as good even if you feel like you're sleeping. So there's that. There's, yeah, like you said, turning off breakers. You can do, filters for dirty electricity. That's something that gets overlooked a lot. Dirty electricity being the transients that are riding on the house wiring, and it can create like a cage effect. So, and this is happening a lot now because you have 50 hertz cycles, we have 60 hertz here, but that's 50 hertz is better, by the way. So you're already in a better situation than Americans are. But and you're in a better situation because there's always excess electricity. If you're on grid power and it comes into your home, there's excess and should return. There's like a return wire to go back to like the station where it came from. And what happens in this country, and it's like the only place in the world where we use the ground to carry
Yeah.
that back. And so it pollutes the ground that you're walking on.
Mm,
So grounding doesn't always help you if you're walking over these fields, and that's
mm.
even like affecting it's such a big, I think a lot of people do feel ill here that don't feel ill like in Europe because of that,
Yeah.
because of the poisoning the ground with this return. But in any case, we're overpowering the wiring that's only meant to carry so much at a certain frequencies, and you've got wireless frequencies on it. And so that's going to then like overload that system and create like another field. So you have these filters you can plug in and you can measurably reduce that and you'll feel it. I mean, I feel it. Again, I'm sensitive to this, but it's amazing the difference that those can make, in an
Mm.
home environment. And a lot of people who move off grid to get away from like wireless stuff aren't aware that their off grid systems make things worse in their homes because the solar
Yes.
inverters can be very dirty, like
Mm.
really noisy, as they say. And you can filter those too, but it's important to do it because otherwise, I mean, I've been in off-grid homes that I make me like sick, and the wireless is off, and I'm just like I feel horrible, horrible. I can't put even like think put two sentences together, two words together. I
Yeah.
can't think anymore. Even talking on Zoom and like on the screen, it affects my cognitive function. It's a lot better when I'm not on it. So,
Yes.
so that
We're
they're
so,
affecting us. Yeah. So anything
um,
you can do to reduce. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say we're sort of running out of time now. So just
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
say, where is the best place for people to purchase your books?
Oh yeah. So I have them on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. So for I don't know if Barnes and Noble, if there's a UK branch or that's just here, but or how much the shipping is for that. They do a better job of printing, I have to say, than Amazon. But so I have those two options for people who really don't want to use Amazon. You can also buy them for me if you're in the US, unless you want to pay for some really expensive international shipping. If you want a signed copy, you can get them from me. And just if you go to my website, there's always updates on there about where to get them and how to get
I'll
them and what's up. And that website is Wi-Fi refugee.com, but it's Wi-Fi and then hyphen refugee.com.
I'll put that in
Okay, great.
in the description. But they
Hmm.
can, because obviously a lot of people
Yeah,
watching this are going to be all over the place.
yeah.
Um, so
You can do
Amazon is
Amazon
probably
would be the best if you're international, right?
yeah, yeah. But
Hmm.
if they want a signed copy, and I ship out signed copies every
Hmm.
week, I ship out them
Yeah.
all over the world. I've sent them
Okay.
everywhere, Hong Kong,
Oh, great.
Tasmania,
Yeah.
everywhere. So there
Yeah. If you're,
probably will be people that want that
oh,
option.
sure. If they want to pay for shipping, I offer free shipping in the US because it's
Yeah,
usually not very much. But yeah. But you can, yeah, we could definitely work something out if they want.
brilliant.
It's just they're big, they're heavy, and so you
Yeah,
want
it's
to
not
get
going
to
to.
be a lot.
Yeah,
Well, the Wi-Fi refugee is a smaller one, so
yeah.
that probably is less shipping. But,
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much
yeah.
for
Thank
coming on the
you.
show and for sharing this. And I think most people that are watching this will be on board. It's going to
Yeah.
resonate with what they know. But I'm hoping that a few people watching this will perhaps spend a little bit less time on their screen as well.
Yeah,
But
get out in the world. Yeah, get out in nature, start doing some
absolutely,
start hobbies that don't involve the screen. I mean, that's a huge benefit, you know. I
yeah,
mean, there's all kinds of things we used to do that we've forgotten about that are just so much healthier and, you know. So, yeah. Definitely. And I get into more details about solutions and all in my books
yeah.
too. So,
Well, thank you,
mhm.
Shannon. And
You're welcome. Thanks so much.
it's yeah, it's been really lovely chatting to you.
You
And
too.
as I said, I'll put all the links in.
Great.
And yeah, we'll have to get you back on again. And I hope that
Okay, great.
hope people, resonate with what you've said because I certainly do. I'm already on board.
Oh, great.
But yeah, thank you so much for joining
You're
me. I
welcome.
really do
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Great. All right. Have a good one.
And you.
Thanks.